Hi, hello there, and welcome to the Brother Slim. Figured since this week, in fact, I do believe the evening of this video being posted, me and the boys are getting back into Aeon Trespass Odyssey. Very excited, but also didn't want to not post a video this week since we're not streaming those currently. I figured now would be a good time to showcase all of the Aeon Trespass miniatures because every single one is painted, woo, including the Talespinner promo one that came out at Essen and I think is still available on their online store. But yeah, I figured we'll do a little showcase from the very beginning all the way through. I'll have some little comments on my thoughts on the minis and the paint jobs and how I did or didn't do great on them. We'll go through them all and yeah, should be fun. So, starting first things first with the Dreamwalkers, the starter Titans, or yeah, Titans, not Primordials. So I painted these fellows just very quickly. Kind of simple and effective was the plan, but specifically quick because I didn't think we'd be using them that long. We are 40 plus days into cycle 1 and haven't gotten any other Titans yet, so I might revisit them and spruce them up a little bit. Also, I saw someone for Kingdom Death had painted all the bases gold, and I thought it looked awesome, and so I decided to copy that. It looks so cool. So that was Solon. This was Ulyssia, if I remember the names correctly. Once again, just very, very basic, but fun minis to paint nonetheless. Herodotus went with a darker skin tone to mix things up. Cool. Ulyssia and I cannot remember the second female Titan's name. Super cool though, with the ballista gun, and ooh, the chariot thing that I can't remember the item's name right now either. But yeah, so there we are, our 4 starters. Next up we have the Chibi. So of course the faithful Argo. I don't know how well that's going to show up here. It looks way too bright. Wonder if I can get my hand out of the way and that might show up a little bit better. Maybe. So my kind of MO with these chibi minis for the adventure journey voyage phase, that's the word. I wanted them to look like marble pieces, kind of like us as the players are, or us as the Argonauts, are the crew on the bridge of the ship, moving these little tokens around a map. And I don't think it's showing up very good in the lighting I have. It's the Hermesian Pursuer, little chibi. That one's, I think, the worst of the bunch as far as the marble effect. But yeah, pretty stoked on how it turned out. Again, I don't know if it's going to look that well on camera. But that's the idea. Like, these are little tokens that us, the Argonauts, are moving around on the Argo's actual ship bridge. There we go. And what makes the most sense? Let's go ahead and switch up to the Primordials. Nah, let's keep going with the Titan train here. Next up is the promo Zeus god form Herodotus. Didn't know if I wanted to do yellow or blue lightning, and so I decided to do both. Not sure if it was the most effective option, but thought it worked out to be pretty striking, and it was fun to do. Kind of like, yeah, you know what, I kind of like the blue more actually, but now. Big flowy hair, big flowy beard, majestic, as they say. Okay, moving on to the Cycle 1 Titans. We'll save my favorite for last. Maze Runner. Nice dynamic pose. I do love that they're all modeled with armor and gear that you can get in game. Super cool touch. I did hear online that a lot of the like combat-focused arts that you can find in the various game books are actually based on playtesters and the gear and situations that the playtesters had while testing the game originally, which is pretty cool. Oh, what's this fellow's name? I can't remember his name. Logic Breaker. Prototype Logic Breaker, if you want to get technical. So kind of like a superhero landing pose, not like the most exciting one, because obviously that pose in real life is a very fluid and full of motion, when if you just get the ground pounding miniature, it looks kind of static. But again, really cool armor. Love the sword and shield. And it was quick and easy to paint, which is fun. Not super keen on the orange glow, but it works. And then last but certainly not least, I think this is my favorite of the Cycle 1 Titans. The Earth Breaker or Earth Shatterer, one of the two. It's going to be a slight test of my knowledge. Trying to remember what they're all called. But the 6-armed guy with his big sword and impetus breakers. Very, very neat. Yeah, he's my favorite Titan of Cycle 1 for sure. And then their namesakes, because of course all of the Titans are modeled after Primordials, at least to a certain degree. Everyone's favorite hands-on individual, the Hecaton of Fun himself, or itself, I should say, or something like that. I think I could go back and do like a few more highlights on the flesh, or maybe add like a little bit more ruddy hue or some veins or something. But it's fun. It's cool. It was fun to paint this much flesh. That creepy, lovely hand mouth. Labyrinthoros, aka Slugbull. Yeah, kind of like a nudibranch coming out of the machine. Pretty creepy, pretty cool. I don't know if there is a correlation or not, but the tentacles are all very similar to the Cycle 3 primordial tentacles, and so I'm curious if there's any sort of story relation there. Very cool. This one, during the design of the game, was going to be one of the first like removable VP parts, vantage points, that you take on and off the mini, but I think they scrapped it due to size. We fought him, I think, 3 or 4 times now and haven't actually had the opportunity to unlock the vantage point yet, so perhaps it was a good call for them as far as tooling goes. Next up for Cycle 1, sure, we have the Great Hermesi, or Hermesi, the Great and Powerful. So the MO that I went with this paint job was Blue Morpho Butterflies, which saw down in Costa Rica last year. They were very striking, very cool, and absolutely ginormous. If I was to go back and redo it, I think I would make the eyeball markers a little bit bigger, just because they're a little small in comparison, and adjust the sail so it doesn't quite look this same tone as the skin tone. But yeah, creepy, stilt-walking, bladed stilt-walking Mothman. Very cool indeed. And him being a primordial, he does have a Titan named after him. In this case being the Game Changer. A very dynamic pose, super cool spear, and epic helmet flow. Yep, he cool, he cool. He very cool indeed. Alright, so that is not quite Cycle 1 because I missed one very important primordial. That being this heckin' chonk of a giant, crazy worm beast. Temenos. It being so big and there being a lot of different shapes, which is kind of on point given the nature of Cycle 1 and maze and such. I wanted to do something that would be effective and easy, and as far as color choice, if I hadn't done a purple worm for an Oathsworn mini, I think I probably would have done it kind of like pale purple and gray, but I didn't want to do the same thing again, and I saw a lot of like the colors that I was planning on using, like blues and such. I ended up using some blue in for the stones anyways, but for the skin tone online, and so I wanted to do something different. I didn't see any yellow ones. Yellow is not really a color I use very often, and so went with yellow instead, so it looks kind of like nuclear toxic banana slug worm. This is the first miniature that does have a removable victory point, so let's see if we can pop this off here. Come on, pop off. There we go. So that pops off, leaving a nice little nubbin back there. And then this Soap Happy goes just like that. Kind of like adult extra nerdy Lego, and I love it, even if it is just one piece. And so the vantage point. Throughout the fights, you can have Titans end up climbing on top, and then you get to go with them, which is pretty cool and just super thematic on the table. Again, we haven't actually had it happen in game yet, but I like very much. Okay, now we'll get moving on to cycle 2. Starting off with the Titans once again. Let's go ahead and go. These are all pretty cool. So this one's based on Cyclonus. I can't remember its name. Again, decided to go with that marble effect for his helmet and knuckle duster weapons. And similar kind of action T-pose. I think this one shows a little bit more motion than the Logic Breaker, though, so I think it's more effective. And painting the skin tone was a lot of fun, too. Yeah, he is thick and cool. Speaking of thick, let's go straight to my favorite chunky boy. I can't remember this one's name either, but this one is for the Chimera. Ended up coming back and redoing a couple things on this. One was the skin tone. First I did it 2 gray. I'm not like crazy happy with the skin tone, but it'll do. It's cool. His flamethrower is a lot of fun to paint, and then having the building backpack thing is pretty cool too. So definitely a fan of this one. And he's huge, especially in comparison to basically any other Titan, but like he's thick. He's awesome. And then next up, I can't remember any of the Cycle 2 Titan names. This one's based on the Nitzchen, which I'm sure I'm pronouncing wrong. As you'll see with the Primordial, I kind of went on like a Blade Flesh or Attack on Titan kind of vibe. And so I wanted that to come through with the Titan here too. And then try to accentuate the skull helm by painting it a little bit of white there too. Yeah, really cool dynamic mini. Kind of messed up the flames a little bit, but that's okay. It's still fun. And it's cool. And for the Primordials themselves, here is Cyclonus, 4 enslaved Cyclops with detachable hammer hands. Very scary. And horrible, gruesome chunk stuck in his back. And if you look really closely, I decided not to paint them just because they're such small details. But you can see little details of people in these cages, which is just horrific. And next up, I think this one's missing a piece. Yeah, let's get that back on. Here we have. That's the one piece. One moment. The Chimera. So this is essentially a ginormous ooze. That kind of like giant ooze trapdoor spider that carries its whole / cover with it. You know what? I'm pretty happy with it. It's simple. It's pretty easy to paint, all things considered. Except I think the one thing I messed up was dry brushing instead of like edge highlighting the bright neon color. I don't really know what I was going for, but just kind of toxic looking. The one mistake though was not taking enough paint off the brush when doing this lion head. He's got some very serious eyebrows if you look close. So that was a bit of a faux pas, but happy with the rest on the whole. Especially again for being a big mini and just wanting it to be done relatively quick. It's cool. It's cool. This one also has 2 vantage points. Let's see if I can get these off. So that pops right off there. Then this one's much easier. That goes there. And this goes up there. Once again, that just leaves ground for us player characters to tromp onto. Let's go with the chunky boy. Just like that, which is pretty cool. And wherever the ooze goes, oops, you go with it. Yeah. And last but certainly not least, for Cycle 2, we have the Nietzschean himself. Nietzschean. Yeah, I don't know how to pronounce that. That's okay, though. Here he is in all his glory. So once again, I've never watched Attack on Titan, but I was, I think there was like a finale or something going on when I was starting to paint this this cycle. And I was just inspired by, I think it was like an army of them, or maybe it's like a main one that has no skin. It's just like all bloody meat muscle, which is terrifying. And the texture on this model just kind of reminded me of that too. And I thought it would be a lot of fun to try and imitate it. And it was a blast to paint. It was cool. It was very cool. Then is flamey smoke, good, and swords sticking out of the back. Super neat. And then I think I've never really painted any like pinup kind of things before, and I must say that is a very shapely bum. It's kind of funny to paint, especially just given the overall nature of the rest of the miniature. And then of course there is the Nietzschean himself, the Spartan God King fellow down at the bottom, just super tiny. Yeah, very proud of this one. It was a blast to paint. I think the flames turned out good. The flayed meat skin turned out good. And the skull smoke things turned out good too. So very happy with that one on the whole. And literal fire crotch. Okay, before we go into Cycle 3 proper, we do have some other little bits to show. This one is, if I remember the name correctly, is the Sky Seer, which is a promo stretch goal. I think you can get it as an add-on now, but it was free for the original Kickstarter, which is a crossover with Madara by Succubus Publishing, if I remember the name correctly. Another big, giant, sweeping, epic campaign, branching narrative board game kind of thing. And yeah, it makes a sweet Titan too. So looking forward to unlocking them. I think they're from the theater, which we haven't unlocked yet. So they're somewhere unlocked there, I believe. She's cool. She's very cool. And moving on, here is the promo purchasable from their web store / available at Essen. The Talespinner. She is jacked, and I think she's super cool. The quality and components are obviously a little different than the base game. This one is resin and needed a little bit of assembly. It was pretty easy. But yeah, no complaints. Went together good. No real issues. More content for the game. I think that's a win. Looking at her rules and such, I think if I remember correctly, like a lot of her rule sets interacts with Cycle 4, which is coming out later this year. And if I remember from her little blurb that she came with, she's really strong and will make the game easier if you play her in Cycle 2. Maybe a little bit easier for Cycle 3. And then I think, again, like her rule set is too old for Cycle 4. And then we have the Truth Bearer, not the Immortal variety, because that one's coming with the next wave. Pretty freaking cool. This big ball, again, did that marble effect to a varying degree of success on the ball itself. And just pretty simple bone armor and metallic helm. Yeah, cool. And he does have a adversary primordial that he's based off of. And I freaking love this mini. Kind of reminds me of ancient Greek Quintesson from Transformers. I am a child of the 90s, and although I hated the death of Optimus Prime, I did love that movie on the whole. And yeah, ancient Greek Quintesson. Love it. So we got the 4 faces, and again, that marble effect in play here, with a black ambrosia hand reaching out the top. And I used some pigments to kind of like enhance the look of the rock and add some dust to it. Oh, look at that poor guy there. I don't know how good the light white color is showing up on camera, but that's okay. Stoked on this one. He's cool. Okay, and now on to Cycle 3. Well, let's do the Titans first once more. 1, 2, 3. Here we go. This is the Dawn Burner, who has a single grafted primordial wing, flamey hair, and a giant pike. At this point, I just kind of wanted to get everything finished, so I didn't spend that much time on them. But simple and effective paint job. I think it works. Cool. Next up, oh bugger, what's his name? Mr. Evolver. I can't remember what the actual name is, but I think his whole shtick is all about evolution based on the Aeon Harpy. Super dynamic pose, disgustingly long toenails. We love to see it. And ancient Greek swords in the stone. Mjolnir hammer. Love it. Helmet kind of reminds me of like a old school diving helm too, which is cool. Lastly, I think my favorite, the Returner, I think, something like that. Once again, pretty quick, easy paint job. The big thing I wanted to do was like a wet blend of the cape, which worked pretty well. The dry brushed highlights didn't work that great on top, though. I really need some new dry brushes. But happy with it. It's bright, it's vibrant, and it's cool. Nice stark contrast against just the gray base, too. Okay, and the Cycle 3 Primordials. Here is the Icuran. I don't know how to pronounce the name for sure, based on Icarus, though. The Icuran Harpy. We'll just go with that. Really cool, trippy mini. All the tentacles, some of the limbs, all of the wings, all the long nails, all the fun. I do like how the tentacles coming out of the face are kind of like a fantastically gross mustache. Amazing. Next up, the Hypertime Oracle. So at one time I had a pretty zany, fun, bright, out there painted Tzeentch Warhammer army, and so I kind of wanted to get some of that Tzeentchy goodness for this one, just because it felt like it really fit the bill. So that same wet blended effect as the Returner Titan, and it was a lot of fun to paint this guy. Alrighty, and the Sun Descendant. This model is so big, and I had to go back and I didn't start from scratch each time, but I had to repaint various aspects of it 2 or 3 times a piece. Before, everything was just too bright, and then some things were too bright, and others looked too chalky, and then the skin wasn't good, and I tried to do an OSL effect from the humanoid gaping maw on top here, and just ruined everything in the process because I didn't think it through. And the skulls looked bad. Yeah, it was a saga for sure, but is it all in focus? There we go. Happy with it now, and that's what counts. Yeah, it's a wild one. This one also has 3 vantage points, which is pretty sweet. So we can pop these out, pop this out, pop that little guy out. Go. And then pop these bad boys in. I do love how you get to ride on these clouds. There we go. One more time. There we go. Which is, once again, like, is it a necessary thing? No. Is it cool? Abso-freaking-lutely it is. I love it. And then, of course, we can just pop these guys here. And you're all set for a legendary showdown. Love it. Okay, and last but certainly not least, one moment. the bonus deluxe, first player, nope, not first player, priority target marker. I originally did a just super quick paint job on it, and just the other night went back and did a couple more highlights to bring it out a little bit. And yeah, like not a huge amount of effort, and it went from looking quite average to, I think, pretty cool. So happy with it for sure. The big things I drew out were making clouds actually clouds, adding like a little inner halo-ish highlight to the inner part of the sun, dry brushing the hair, getting some of the muscles so super swole. And yeah, it's pretty cool. Pretty cool. I had a whole theory based on some of the updates of ITU on their thing. Well, I should have a theory, I should suppose, about the base game, the 2 cycle expansion, and Sins of Heracles, as well as a proverbial 3rd follow-up game, about what it's all going to entail. And I think it has something to do with some of the miniatures, like this one, have a specific symbol which relates to deities. This one obviously being, oh goodness, what is the sun god? Helios. Helios is the sun god. So, and this is who he is. I'm curious if there's something cheeky about this first player marker, and what other sort of uses it might have in a game. But anyways, like to summarize my theory, I might put a little link to it because it rambles for a couple paragraphs on BGG and into the description here. But I think base game, we face off against, or like a base game including the expansions, we go all the way down to the bowels of the sea and face off against Earthfleece, and he also has a Poseidon symbol on the base, which we know from one of the more recent updates. So go all the way down to the bottom of the sea, face off against some sort of deific power. Sins of Heracles, we're going to face off against our Papa Zeus, so on the top of Mount Olympus, or in a little deific demiplane. And I wouldn't be surprised if he's got the Zeus symbol on the bottom of his base. And for the hypothetical 3rd game, which they do seem to, ITU does seem to mention multiple times that like 3 is a very important number for this series. So it makes sense that there's going to be more, especially since we've already seen some clues. And even like the voted on add-on Primordial Nemesis thing, which kind of resembles the Burden, but from outer space. Looks very spacey. I think if we don't face off against this fellow as an actual god in the base game, I wouldn't be surprised if Interstellar we go and face off against the sun god in outer space. Super outer space Greco battles. I think that sounds fun. Anyways, yeah, thanks for listening to my little rambly TED talk about what may or may not happen in the game. I'll be really curious to see if I'm close or how far off I am, because at this point, the point of this video, we are on day 40 of cycle 1, so we know very little of what's going on in the greater ATO world. Fantastic world, though it is, that's for sure. So yeah, thank you very much for taking a peek at my painted minis, and looking forward to diving back into this game soon. Hope everyone has a fantastic rest of the week. Bye!